Hello and welcome.
I'm Jerica.
And I'm Fiona, and we're your hosts of
Insider Aiding, a segment of the Clean Getaway Podcast where we discuss current trends in the public relations world.
We are currently recording from my living room on a super stormy evening. There's a tornado warning, so get ready for some hot PR insights with possible side of thunder and lightning.
In this episode, we are discussing how PR campaigns shape our perception of mental health care, services, and treatment.
Also wanted to give a trigger warning as we mentioned topics of self-harm and depression. Specifically, we're going to be taking a deep dive into controversies around the subscription mental health network, BetterHelp. When addressing a population of individuals in recovery, seeking treatment, proper verbiage is obviously so key. So we'll be looking at some of their campaigns and influencers that have been involved in their advertisement strategies.
Yeah, so just a quick little introduction into what BetterHelp is if you don't know. So BetterHelp advertises itself as a subscription-based online counseling platform that seeks to make mental health services more accessible online for individuals over 18. There are options to attend weekly video, phone, or live texting sessions, plus access to messaging with your therapist between live sessions.
Yeah, based off of my own personal research about BetterHelp, I did notice that they don't accept insurance. Like a lot of healthcare in this country, it can be really tricky assessing what resources align with your own insurance and financials. So that's a huge red flag personally that I noticed. There's also no specific psychiatric services available. I think that the campaigns that I've seen, they really promote an overall messaging that just provides a specific type of care that seems more holistic. And they also operate on a subscription model. So they've received a lot of criticism for incentivizing therapists to prioritize client retention over sort of the overall quality of care, which I think we should definitely hold them accountable for.
Yeah, definitely. There's a huge question here of, is BetterHelp capitalizing on mental health? So there's really a long history of BetterHelp partnering with influencers, specifically on YouTube and podcast. I personally, as well as Fiona, have seen so many BetterHelp ads on YouTube as well as TikTok being really pushed by influencers, and it's being heavily promoted by all influencers on these podcasts. According to Magellan AI, a podcast advertising company, BetterHelp actually spent over $7 million on podcast advertising in December of 2020, which is a huge number. That's more than any other advertiser has spent on podcast advertising, which is crazy.
I know, scrolling through TikTok, I've seen so many influencers of all different types of niches. Food TikTokers or lifestyle, but I just see that a lot of promotion of BetterHelp. So many of the TikToks don't really even explain their own experience using the platform. Overall, wanting to bolster their image as a resource that can apply to all sorts of needs, which I've been sort of wondering.
Yeah, it's every influencer wants to be trendy with Gen Z, but is BetterHelp actually doing anything?
Yeah, and I think seeking mental health care is something that obviously has been really stigmatized, and a lot of people come at it from a very vulnerable place. And I think influencers painting a picture of the company without being authentic about their own experiences is something for me personally, I don't see them as being credible. But yeah, we know YouTube ads often can mislead people. I think BetterHelp is a good example of a huge counseling program that shouldn't necessarily be used for people dealing with severe mental illness. I think a lot of what they advertise isn't specific to certain things that people are really struggling with.
Yeah, a lot of these YouTube creators or influencers have been accused of misleading the public while saying that BetterHelp was employed by actual psychologists and professionals when this actually was not the case. BetterHelp received a lot of negative publicity after creators backed away from sponsorships from the company after accusations of misleading advertisements and unclear terms of service for the company were made public, which we will get into a bit later. For both influencers and BetterHelp itself, affiliate marketing can be highly profitable, but this does not come without ethical and moral dilemmas. YouTubers who talk about how much BetterHelp benefits them often do not disclose how much they're making from these partnerships, or if they don't really go into the specifics of how it benefited them. Influencers are often accused of capitalizing on their followers' mental health because of this reason.
So much of these topics around mental health and specific influencers that are partnering with these types of subscriptions poses the question, are these affiliate marketers trying to exploit the global mental health crisis, and how much of their values and personal perceptions of what mental health care looks like, and how people just choose to benefit not a holistic approach, I guess. I think that mental health care and receiving treatment that really works for people it's a multi-faceted approach that needs to be more addressed than just through their marketing.
Definitely. It almost seems like they're kind of referring to mental health as something trendy that they can make a quick dollar from, which is not the vibe, obviously. So on top of all of that, they also have a huge scandal with Travis Scott. So shortly after the whole incident at the Astroworld Festival happened, BetterHelp partnered actually with Travis Scott. People were very disturbed by this partnership. Travis Scott offered to cover 1 month of therapy for individuals affected by the tragedy that happened at the Astroworld Festival in Houston. People called this partnership exploitative and insidious behavior after a tragedy that victims and their families were still grappling with. The partnership, quite frankly, read as an influencer brand deal, which, that's not very genuine. People felt as seeking a brand partnership after this huge mass casualty disaster was very inappropriate, which I totally agree with. It really just seems like they're trying to profit off of this tragedy rather than really trying to provide individuals with mental health help in such a time of need. The Astroworld PR move is also structured in a way that does not quite center the victims. If Travis Scott wanted to actually assist those that were affected throughout this huge tragedy, he should have done that definitely more discreetly rather than trying to make a huge brand deal to really, profit. Travis Scott really just seems like he was trying to get, a PR deal out of it to try to protect or save his personal image rather than actually owning up to anything or really trying to help the people that were affected by this event.
Yeah, I think when someone endures the trauma of witnessing such a horrific incident, what took place, it takes such a personalized treatment plan that I think for him to take the easy way out of partnering with this huge company, this huge network, it allowed him to step back from the situation and BetterHelp to sort of address this really horrific situation and all these individuals that were affected.
And only a 1 month free trial, that's not enough to
insane.
deal with anything.
I think it's just another example of how influencers and celebrities just often don't know how to address situations of crisis and often turn to huge conglomerates and huge companies to protect that sort of image and that perception of community care, which I don't think Travis Scott is contributing to personally, but that's just me.
No, I totally agree.
BetterHelp, I know that they've had a lot of privacy issues and privacy scandals. They've faced criticism, a lot of apps and social media, but they've definitely had privacy concerns. I know when the company first launched around their sort of origin story in 2018, they had a lawsuit that alleged false advertising and deceptive marketing. There's even a tweet that we found by @DavidPutter, a licensed therapist and psychiatrist, that states BetterHelp was fined $7.8 million by the FTC for sharing patient data, which included email addresses, IP addresses, and health questionnaires with Meta and Snapchat. And I know there's a TikTok that we were talking about earlier that raised more of awareness on the fact that they were selling data to third parties to update it. And then, like, there was an update on terms, right?
Yeah,
Jerica?
so BetterHelp actually updated its terms of service and privacy policy after this to claim that it does not sell users' information on any advertising platform or third party. That is, of course, excluding the data that will be shared with affiliates in BetterHelp's corporate group or for various business purposes. After updating their privacy policy and terms of service, that was pretty ironic. The FTC says that the company repeatedly pushed people to take an intake questionnaire and hand over sensitive health information through unavoidable prompts, and is promised to keep this information private through statements such as, "Rest assured, any information provided in this questionnaire will stay private between you and your counselor." But from the FTC's perspective, a truthful statement would have been, "Rest assured, we plan to share your information with major advertising platforms, including Facebook, Snapchat, Criteo, and Pinterest." So that information was definitely not private, and their terms of service were, not really adhered to.
Personally, like, we see so many terms and agreements, right? So, like, we register for an app or we pay for a subscription, and then we get pages of terms and agreements that we are expected to read through. Do we read through them? Maybe not. But that being said, I feel like with mental health provider networks specifically, there's a whole, like, HIPAA agreement, like, conversation that I think can be applied.
Yeah,
like,
you should, it's just kind of assume that information is confidential and won't be shared with any third-party apps.
I think, like, it's sort of crazy to me that people don't see the brain as, like, part of the body, like mental health care in terms of confidentiality and treatment is seen as so separate from, like, just any other health condition. And I'm looking forward to the day that I see more of a narrative that validates and promotes
everyone's experience.
And I think that is so important, especially modern day America. I think, like, having trustworthy networks of mental health providers is so important, because we see so many, like, public figures, more and more influencers being open about their struggles with mental health, which is so important as it sort of contributes to destigmatizing these conversations, using their platforms to raise awareness. But I also think, in light of that, having influencers promote companies that have been more transparent about not only where customers' data is going, how it's being used, but specific experiences, and also just, like, disclosing the licensing of their providers and all things,
as a mental health, like, app or provider, how, like, you shouldn't be partnering with influencers, or specifically, like, as an influencer, you shouldn't be partnering with a mental health service if you don't specifically have a mental health issue, or if, like, you have not used this specific platform and seen results. Like, you should not be sharing something regarding mental health with your audience if it has not actually done anything for you, or if you do not truly believe in that platform, which I think is a huge problem when it comes to BetterHelp and their past kind of issues that we see with the influencers. It just really did not seem genuine at all. And it takes a while for that type of stuff to work and to see any results. So it's like, how genuine really was it? Or were they just doing it to make some money,
Yeah, totally. I think, like, a lot of these campaigns, BetterHelp included, focus on promoting this idea that mental health issues can be quickly resolved, specifically in context to the Travis Scott. They only provided 1 month of care, the cost of 1 month, which people, myself included, that have experienced mental health issues and have sought care, it's an understanding that healing doesn't have a timeline. Like, we're all on our own journey in terms of what is going to make us feel grounded and more in control and more choosing joy, able to choose joy every day. I think like people need to acknowledge the limitations of certain public relation campaigns, how they address the root cause of mental illness specifically. I mean, there's so much to be said. There's such a vast conversation, and I think like acknowledging the complexities of these challenges is so important.
Absolutely. I think we just kind of want to take a minute to end this conversation by saying that prioritizing access to affordable and evidence-based mental health care and community care and treatment rather than promoting quick fixes or prioritizing profits over care is really what is so important and what we should all be taking away from this. It all really comes down to the collective pursuit to create a more inclusive and supportive society for individuals with mental health conditions, especially with PTSD. That's not something that's going to be fixed quickly by a 1 month free trial,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Totally.
That's all for today's episode of the Clean Getaway Podcast. We hope you found this discussion informative and thought-provoking, and we would love to hear your thoughts on the matter.
Just anyone listening, remember to take care of yourself today and not feel guilty for prioritizing your mental health, and seek help if you're in need. There are resources we've provided in your description, and remember, you are not alone. There is absolutely solidarity in the pursuit to feel more grounded and at peace in the super crazy fast-paced world we live in. Thank you so much for listening.